So you want to have money for retirement. Love to hear it, because we're going to make sure you know everything there is to know about the Canadian Tax Advantage Retirement Account. We're breaking down the RRSP, or the Registered Retirement Savings Plan, which is an investment account that was introduced by the Government of Canada in 1957 as part of the Income Tax Act. Now, right off the bat, you're eligible to open up an RRSP if you're living in Canada, if you earn a Canadian income, if you filed a tax return before, and also if you're under the age of 71, because yes, there's actually an age maximum for this account. Now, similar to the TFSA in Canada, the word savings in the title is definitely a little misleading. And throughout this video, we're going to talk all about how you can use this account to invest and set yourself up for your future.
Okay, so let's start off by diving into how the RRSP is a tax-advantaged account. Now, similar to the TFSA, the reason this account exists in the first place is so that people will put money away for retirement. Now, the reason they're also incentivized in the first place to do this is because of the tax benefits that come along with this account. Now, once again, just like the TFSA, even though this account is called a Registered Retirement Savings Plan, the main purpose that you should be using this account for is for investing. That's where you're going to be able to take full advantage of everything that comes along with this account, which we'll get back to here in a second. First, let's just back up. We need to start by making sure that we're all on the same page on what an investment account is. So let's put it this way. When you go to invest your money, the first thing that you need to do is you need to figure out a place to actually do it. So that could mean your bank or any other online brokerage. The second thing that you have to do is figure out which investment account you're going to open so that you can buy your investments within that account. It's kind of like having a checking and a savings account, right? So even though both these accounts are similar in the sense that you can put your money in and kind of just let it sit there, they both have slightly different purposes. So the RRSP is similar in that way. So kind of like the TFSA, picture a laundry basket, right? The laundry basket itself, that would be the RRSP. Now the clothes that go inside the laundry basket, those would be your investments. So your stocks, bonds, ETFs, currencies, you name it, those would be the clothes. Now the RRSP, once again, that would be the carrier, right? It would be what's holding all these investments inside of it. So now what are the tax benefits of the RRSP versus, let's say, another account? Well, the key benefit is going to be the fact that the RRSP is tax deferred. So what that means is that any money that you earn on the investments that you make within this account are going to be tax free. Now you'll notice that I said for now. Well, one of the biggest rules that you need to know in order to understand how the RRSP actually works starts with the keyword retirement. Basically, your money's allowed to grow tax-free up until retirement or up until the point you start to actually withdraw from your RRSP. But to keep things consistent, let's say you make it till retirement, right? If at that point you start to sell off your investments and you start to take money out of your RRSP, at that point, you have to pay taxes on that money. Now, some of you might be hearing this and thinking, wait, that sounds like a pretty weird advantage, doesn't it?
So let's break down what tax deferred really means, and I'm going to use a quick example to explain this. So let's say that your income is $50,000. $50,000 is what you make in a year. But during a single tax year, you end up contributing $9,000 to your RRSP. That means when it comes time to file your taxes for that tax year, the CRA is going to look at your income as if you only made $41,000 and not the $50,000. And if you weren't following the math there, that's $50,000 subtract the $9,000 you put into your RRSP. Now, the benefit here is that someone who only made $41,000 in income, they're going to pay less taxes than someone who made $50,000 in income. That basically means that you're allowed to get away with not paying taxes on $9,000 of your income, and that's the advantage of the RRSP. Now, something to keep in mind is that that only is the benefit that you get right now. It's still not touching on that deferred part. And what we mean by tax deferred is that even though you're not paying taxes on that $9,000 now, you are going to have to pay taxes on that $9,000 later into the future. And that future time is when you withdraw money out of your RRSP. But let's explain why that's still better to pay taxes in the future as opposed to today. It's because the income that you have coming in each year when you're retired is likely lower than the income that you have coming in each year today. So let's use another example to explain this. Let's say you now make $100,000 per year, a nice little salary increase from the previous $50,000. Of that $100,000 in income, you're hitting a few different tax brackets there. Part of your income is being taxed at 15%, part of it's being taxed at 20.5%, part of it's being taxed at 26%, and part of it's being taxed at 29%. Now, when you end up adding money into your RRSP, you're bringing down your taxable income, like we went over before. So you're able to skip out on some of those higher tax brackets today in the future sense. Now, if we zoom ahead to the future, when you actually are retired, no more of your typical income coming in, and instead you're just withdrawing money from your RRSP. Let's call it $25,000. In that case, you're only within the 15% tax bracket. So to really wrap this up and make it clear, you're still paying taxes on that money that's in your RRSP, but you're paying it when your tax brackets are in a much lower rate, and that saves you money over your lifetime.
So now that we understand the tax benefits that we're getting from using the RRSP, a lot of you might be thinking, well, why wouldn't I just use the RRSP and the RRSP alone to invest all of my money? Well, you can't. And just like the TFSA, there's a contribution limit that's actually stopping you from doing that. Now, the contribution limit for your RRSP actually involves a little bit of math, but it's more or less pretty simple. It's basically based on your income. So the way that it works is that this year's contribution limit is going to be 18% of last year's reported income on my taxes, up to a specific cap that changes every single year. So for example, if you made $50,000 last year, 18% of that is gonna be $9,000. So that's gonna be the max that you can add. Now, if you made $160,000, 18% of that is $28,800. So now that's gonna be the max that you can put in. So now if you guys remember, I said that there was a cap on how much you contribute from year to year, right? So even though technically your contribution room is 18% of last year's reported income, the government still places a cap on the maximum amount that you can contribute. So to give you an example, remember we said that 18% of $160,000 is $28,800. Now in 2021, the max contribution limit that the government had put was $27,000, right? So even though technically 18% is 28,000, right, of 160, you still could only contribute up until that $27,000. Let's also point out here that when we say income, we're talking about pre-employment tax income. So not what you actually take home, but what it says on paper that you make. So now the next thing that we should probably mention is the fact that your contribution amount is cumulative, meaning that you can carry it over from one year to the next. So it starts building all the way since age 18. And then from that point on, as you're continuing to work and as you're building out that room, if you don't use it in one year, you can carry it over to the next year or the next year and the next year and so forth. What this means is that, for example, if you're 26 just like me and you've never contributed to your RRSP, once again, I'm really focused on maxing out my TFSA first, but if you're in that exact same situation, your contribution amount isn't just gonna be 18% of last year's income. It's gonna be 18% of every year since age 18. Now, some of you might be sitting there thinking, damn, like these calculations sound super complicated. My memory sucks. I don't remember what my income was last year, let alone 2009. How am I gonna do this? Well, luckily for you, all of this information can be found on your CRA My account. So once again, everyone has an account as long as you've been doing your taxes. So even if you've never logged in before, you have an account. Just figure out how to get into that account. Now, one thing to remember is that the information is only calculated once per year. So right now, if you were to log in, it's as of January 1st, 2022.
So now we've covered everything that happens with your RRSP now. How to put money in, how much money you should put in, how it reduces your current taxable income. But the next thing we want to talk about is when you actually want to start withdrawing money from your RRSP in the future. Now, there's no set retirement age that everyone's going to retire by and start withdrawing money from their RRSP. Technically, you could do this anytime before age 71, and we're going to talk about the people who are 71 plus in just a second, or when you hit that age. But how do you actually know when you should start withdrawing money out of your RRSP for yourself? The main thing that we want you to understand here is that you only want to withdraw money from your RRSP once your income, and therefore your tax bracket, is lower than it was when you put money into your RRSP. This is the whole reason why you'd be contributing into it in the first place, to defer your taxes to a time where your income and the taxes you'd be paying on that income is lower. So let's use another quick example to explain this one. I think it's a little easier to picture when you're actually seeing the numbers in action. So in this example, let's say that you're making a salary of $100,000 again. That's your income. And during that same time that your income is $100,000, you put $18,000 into your RRSP. So you've moved your taxable income down to only $82,000 instead, and you're paying less taxes today, which is great. But then let's say that you end up withdrawing money from your RRSP a few years later when your income is still $100,000. In this case, let's again just keep it simple and say that you took $18,000 back out of your RRSP. In this example, you're now raising your taxable income in that year from $100,000 to $118,000, meaning you're paying more taxes than you would have if you didn't take that money out of your RRSP. In this case, you're literally just deferring your taxes by a few years. Sure, you reduced your taxable income one year just to pay even more taxes a few years later, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, and you're not really seeing the advantage of that investment account. In order to use your RRSP to its full potential, you want to make sure that you're using it to defer your taxes to a time where your income and tax bracket is lower, actually saving you money over your lifetime. And to make this super clear, our key takeaway here is that you only want to be withdrawing money from your RRSP, ideally when you're making less income and have a lower tax bracket. So basically when you're hitting that retirement age and your income stopped or slowed down. Now, it's pretty much the same reason that we really recommend you only putting money into your RRSP once you have the highest income you think you'll make as well. Like if you're early on in your career, you know that your salary is going to be growing over the next few years, you might want to wait until you hit those higher salary amounts to start putting money into your RRSP in the first place. And that's exactly why Dennis and I are maxing out our TFSAs first before moving on to our RRSPs. Okay, I have two more quick but important RRSP things to talk about before we wrap this up. So remember before I mentioned that I was going to talk later about the people who are 71 plus and they still have money to withdraw from their RRSP at that time. So if you do hit 71, which is their age max to have an RRSP account, then you can do one of two things. You can either withdraw all of your money from your RRSP at once and just take that out as income, but remember it's going to be taxed as if that was all your income for 1 year, so it might be at a high tax bracket. So if that's the case, your other option is to just convert your money into an RRIF instead, which is a registered retirement income fund. Now, with an RRIF account, once you have it, there are mandatory minimum withdrawals that you have to make every year. So you can either stick with that mandatory minimum or you can withdraw more. And the second important thing is that there is one time and one time only that you can withdraw money from your RRSP and not have it add on to your taxable income for that year. And that's if you've never bought a house before and you're using the first time home buyers plan. I'm going to keep this super high level just to give you a general idea to look into this potentially. But again, if you've never bought a house before, you do have the option of withdrawing money from your RRSP and not having to pay taxes on that money you take out as long as you recontribute it back into your RRSP within 15 years.
Now, something that's super important to know is around protecting money that's held in accounts like your RRSP. So once again, CDIC is working with us on this video. And if you haven't heard of CDIC, they stand for Canada Deposit Insurance Corporation, and they're a federal crown corporation that was created by Parliament back in 1967 to insure bank deposits up to $100,000 per category. One thing to keep in mind is that you automatically have their protection. So if you bank with one of their member financial institutions, if they were to fail, you don't have to sign up on your own. So really, this is great for everyone. One thing to also remember is that they cover up to $100,000 in 7 different categories, with one of them being the RRSP. So overall, they cover savings accounts, checking accounts, GICs, other term deposits, and foreign currency. Now, what they don't cover are mutual funds, stocks, bonds, ETFs, or cryptocurrency. Something else to note is that the locked-in retirement account is another retirement account that they also insure. But if you have both the LIRA and the RRSP, then it's a combined $100,000 max. They also have more information on their website on how spousal RRSPs are covered. So if you want to learn more about that, or if you want to learn about CDIC in general, we're gonna have a link to their website linked down below, so make sure you check that out. All right, guys, that's it for the RRSP. And once again, huge shout out to CDIC for working with us on this video. And yeah, you guys should remember that this is a part of a broader series that we're doing, right? So we've already covered TFSAs, now RRSPs, but we still have to cover our ESPs, our DSPs, and trust accounts. So make sure you're tapped in and you're ready for those videos. Also, we'll have their website linked down below in case you guys want to go check them out. And once again, they've got some great resources and they are free. So if you guys want to go check them out, link down below. And once again, as usual, make sure you actually like the video. Make sure you show us some love. It does help out the channel a ton. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe right there in the corner. And if you haven't seen any of our previous videos, make sure you check them out next. We will be back. You know the vibes. Let's go.